They say fame comes at a price. But for Remy Ma, that price just got too real. Once celebrated as hip-hop's strongest woman, a mother, a fighter, a legend, now she's standing in court, eyes filled with tears, watching her own son face charges in a case the internet can't stop talking about. How did the story of a rap queen turn into a courtroom nightmare? Who's behind this viral drama that's tearing her world apart? And what truth is being hidden from the fans? In this video, we're diving deep past the headlines, past the rumors into the real story of Remy Ma's son, Jayson Scott, and the shocking events that changed everything for the hip-hop power family. Stay till the end, because what you'll hear in part 3 might completely flip how you see Remy Ma forever. Before the flashing cameras, before the trending hashtags and court headlines, there was Reminisce Mackie, better known as Remy Ma, a girl from the Bronx with a fire the world wasn't ready for. She didn't have a silver spoon or a clear path. What she had was raw hunger, a mic, a notebook full of rhymes, and a dream that sounded impossible where she came from. The streets of the Bronx were tough, crime, struggle, survival, but Remy found her escape through words. Her verses were bold, brutal, and real. When she spit bars, people listened. She caught the attention of the late Big Pun, who saw in her what the world would soon see, a queen built for hip-hop's throne. After Big Pun's passing, Fat Joe took her under his wing, and Remy became part of Terror Squad, one of the most feared names in New York rap. Then came Lean Back, the anthem that defined a generation. That one verse, confident, commanding, unforgettable, turned Remy from a neighborhood name into a national sensation. Suddenly, she wasn't just a rapper, she was a movement. But behind the fierce image was a young woman still figuring out life. Fame brought pressure, pressure brought mistakes, and mistakes brought consequences. In 2008, Remy Ma was sentenced to prison after being convicted in a shooting incident. The headlines were merciless. The industry turned its back. The woman who once ruled the charts now sat behind bars, wondering if she'd ever get a second chance. But even there, Remy didn't break. She transformed. She studied, she wrote, she planned her comeback. And through it all, one man stood by her side, Papoose. While most couples crumble under distance, Papoose waited. For 6 long years, he stayed loyal, visiting her, writing her, keeping her music alive in spirit. Their love became legendary, the kind of loyalty hip-hop rarely sees. When Remy finally walked out in 2014, fans celebrated not just her freedom, but their reunion. They were hip-hop's Bonnie and Clyde, strong, real, and unshakable. Remy came back harder than ever. With Fat Joe, she dropped all the way up, a banger that ruled the charts. Awards followed, TV appearances. A new generation of fans discovered her, the queen who never quit. But as Remy rebuilt her empire, life threw her a curveball she didn't see coming. This time, it wasn't her freedom on the line, it was her son's. In 2021, news broke like a thunderclap across every blog and gossip page. Remy Ma's son, charged with murder. The name Jayson Scott suddenly became headline material. According to reports, there had been an altercation outside a Bronx barbershop, a heated argument that spiraled into violence. A 47-year-old man was shot and killed. Within hours, police arrested Jayson, alleging his involvement. The internet went wild. Some called it karma. Others defended him, saying he's being targeted because of his mother's fame. For Remy, the pain was indescribable. She had fought her way back from prison, rebuilt her image, and proved her strength. And now, the system she had escaped once before had her son in its grip. When she appeared in court, she wasn't the glamorous rapper the world knew. She was a mother, desperate to protect her child. Cameras caught her standing outside the courthouse, eyes heavy with emotion, surrounded by reporters asking the same question. Did your son do it? She didn't answer. She couldn't, because she knew, no matter what she said, the world had already made up its mind. The media didn't wait for facts. They wanted clicks, views, drama. So they painted a picture, Remy Ma, once a felon, now the mother of an accused killer. It was the perfect headline. And it spread faster than truth ever could. But those who know Remy know one thing: she doesn't run, she fights. And behind closed doors she began doing just that. She hired lawyers, investigators, and reached out to witnesses. What she found was shocking. The story everyone believed wasn't as simple as it looked. Some witnesses claimed Jayson wasn't the shooter. Others said he wasn't even near the victim when it happened. And one source, who later vanished, suggested that Jayson had been set up. It was chaos. And through it all, Remy's world began to fall apart in more ways than one. Her marriage, once the strongest in hip-hop, started showing cracks. rumors surfaced that Papoose was spending time with someone else, a name fans didn't expect: Claressa Shields, the boxing world champion. At first, people laughed it off. Then, as photos and stories appeared online, the laughter stopped. The woman who had once been half of hip-hop's most loyal couple was now watching her love story crumble in front of millions. Imagine the weight: your son behind bars, your marriage falling apart, your name trending for all the wrong reasons. But if there's one thing Remy Ma has proven over and over again, it's that she's built different. She didn't disappear. She didn't play victim. Instead, she returned to what she knows best, the mic. In a freestyle performance, just months after the court drama exploded, she dropped a line that made fans freeze. "They pray I fall, but I've danced with demons and still walked tall." That wasn't a lyric. That was therapy. Remy Ma was reminding the world, she's not done yet. Her story, her son's story, wasn't over. And deep down, she knew the truth always surfaces, no matter how buried it is. Because behind the headlines, behind the fame, behind the gossip, there's still a mother who's never stopped fighting for her child. And that's where this story truly begins. The headlines made it sound simple: Remy Ma's son charged with murder. But behind those 6 words was a maze of half-truths, missing evidence, and voices the media never cared to hear. Because that night in the Bronx, the night everything changed, wasn't a story about a killer. It was a story about chaos, fear, and how fast the truth can disappear in the noise of the internet. Let's go back. It started with a small argument outside a local barbershop, a disagreement between 2 men that turned heated, then violent. Witnesses say there were at least 6 people involved, shouting, pushing, chaos spilling into the street. And in the confusion, someone pulled a gun. 1 shot, 1 life lost. And before anyone could even understand what happened, police lights flashed across the Bronx sky. Within hours, they had a name: Jayson Scott, Remy Ma's son. They said he matched the description. They said a witness pointed him out. And that was enough to make the morning news. But the deeper you look, the more this story starts to twist. Because that witness later changed their statement twice. Because that description didn't match his clothes that night. And because, according to one security camera angle, the shooter's build didn't match Jayson's at all. Still, none of that mattered. When your mother is a celebrity, especially one who's already been through the system, people don't wait for proof. They assume guilt. They build narratives. They crave drama, and the drama was too good to resist. Remy Ma, the woman who served prison time for shooting someone, now the mother of an accused killer. It was clickbait gold. And that's exactly how the story spread. Inside Remy's home, the atmosphere was completely different. She wasn't angry, she was haunted. Every siren she heard outside reminded her of her own arrest years ago. Every flash of a camera felt like déjà vu. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She just kept repeating one thing to herself: not my son, not again. Those close to her said she refused interviews, refused PR advice, refused to spin the story. She didn't want sympathy, she wanted the truth. And so, she went quiet publicly, while behind the scenes, she started to build a case of her own. Her legal team began collecting everything: CCTV footage, phone records, GPS data, eyewitness statements. They reviewed every second of video they could find from nearby businesses. And what they discovered was shocking. Some footage from cameras pointed directly at the scene had gone missing. Other clips showed timestamps that didn't line up with police reports. One piece of evidence even showed a shadow of someone taller, wearing a hoodie of a different color. But none of it made headlines, because truth doesn't trend the way scandal does. Meanwhile, the emotional pressure on Remy was breaking her from the inside. Her once perfect marriage with Papoose was slipping through her fingers. While she fought lawyers, police, and journalists, Papoose was seen at public events, not alone, but with Claressa Shields, the undefeated boxing champion. At first, fans thought it was business, maybe a collaboration. But when photos surfaced of them together, offstage smiling, relaxed, intimate, the internet exploded again. Now, Remy wasn't just the mother of an accused killer. She was the woman whose husband moved on. 2 storms, at the same time, and yet, she kept walking through both. Remy didn't clap back. She didn't post cryptic quotes or emotional rants. She focused, because for her, this wasn't about image, it was about family. In one rare statement, she said quietly, "People forget that I've lived through what they're only typing about." She was right. Because when you've been inside a cell, When you've seen how justice really works, you know that sometimes the system doesn't need truth. It just needs a name. And Jayson had one that everyone recognized. The court hearings began. Remy sat in the front row. Hands clasped, face calm but heartbreaking. Jayson entered in cuffs, eyes lowered, body heavy with fear. The cameras flashed, headlines refreshed, and everyone outside started guessing guilt like it was entertainment. But inside that courtroom, something else was happening. A detective admitted that one piece of evidence had been misplaced. A witness hesitated on the stand, unsure of what they had seen. And another claimed that the person who fired the gun ran off before police even arrived. It didn't prove innocence, but it cracked the certainty of guilt. For the first time, the truth started fighting its way back. Still, Remy knew this was a long war. The legal system moves slow, the internet moves fast, and between those two speeds, reputations die. But she wasn't going to let that happen to her son. She told her lawyer, "I beat the system once. I'll do it again, but this time for him." And she meant it. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered. Some came for gossip, others came because they believed in her. A young fan shouted, "We love you, Remy." She turned, smiled faintly, and said, "Keep loving truth instead." That moment went viral, not for controversy, but for courage. It reminded people that behind every headline is a human story, a mother, a son, a family. Then came the first real twist. Remy's lawyers received a call from an anonymous source claiming they had access to the full video footage from that night, footage that was never shown in court. When they watched it, what they saw made the entire room silent. A tall man in a dark hoodie, not Jayson's height, not his build, running away moments after the gunshot. The timestamp matched perfectly with the event. It wasn't hard evidence yet, but it was enough to shake the foundation of the case. Because if that video could be authenticated, it could change everything. Meanwhile, Remy's fans began to rally. Hashtags like #JusticeForJayson and #FreeJayson Scott started trending. Celebrities posted messages of support. Even people who once criticized her began to see the cracks in the story. The tide was shifting. Remy, however, stayed quiet. No interviews, no music videos, no distractions, just one mission: save her son. And in the background, whispers began to spread. Maybe Jayson wasn't guilty. Maybe this was bigger than it looked. Maybe Remy was right all along. By the time the next court date was announced, the world had changed its tone. No longer was this just gossip. It was becoming a fight for justice, live, in real time. And Remy Ma, the same woman who had once been labeled a felon, was now becoming something else entirely, a symbol of resilience. She had been to prison, fallen from fame, rebuilt her life, and now she was standing at the edge again. But this time, she wasn't falling, she was fighting back. Because if there's one thing Remy Ma has always done, it survived what was meant to destroy her. And this battle, for her son, was just beginning. Weeks passed, the headlines quieted, the rumors slowed, but behind the silence, a storm was still brewing. Because something big was about to break in Remy Ma's world. Something that could finally rewrite the story everyone thought they already knew. That anonymous video, the one showing the tall man in a hoodie, running from the scene, was being analyzed. Frame by frame, Remy's legal team brought in digital forensic experts, lawyers, and even private investigators. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but the details spoke loudly. The man in the video had a tattoo on his neck, a design Jayson didn't have, and the way he ran, the body shape, the stride, everything screamed different person. For the first time in months, Remy allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the proof that could free her son. The next court hearing was packed. Reporters filled every seat. Cameras lined the hallway. And the air was thick with tension. Remy sat in the front row, composed, but inside, her heart was pounding. Papoose wasn't there. He hadn't been for weeks. But she didn't care anymore. This fight wasn't about love lost, it was about justice. The defense played the footage for the judge. The room went quiet. Seconds turned into minutes. Then the whispers started. Even the prosecutor looked unsettled. For the first time since his arrest, Jayson Scott looked up, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes that had been missing since day one: hope. The judge ordered a follow-up investigation. New evidence was to be verified, and just like that, the case shifted from certainty to question. Outside the courthouse, the world exploded again, but this time, not against Remy. The headlines changed tone. New evidence could clear Remy Ma's son. Video footage raises doubt in Bronx shooting case. Fans flooded social media. Hashtag Justice for Jayson trended again, but now it wasn't just fans. It was other rappers, activists, even people who had once criticized Remy. They called her strength unbreakable. But behind the applause, Remy was exhausted in her quiet moments. She'd stare at her reflection and whisper, "Why does my peace always come after pain?" She missed the simple things, family dinners, laughter, privacy, but those moments were long gone. Still, she reminded herself, this fight wasn't about her anymore. It was about showing her son, and the world, that no matter what people label you as, truth always finds its way out. Then came the interview everyone was waiting for. Remy Ma, after months of silence, sat down with a major media outlet. No glam team, no flashy background, just her and her truth. The interviewer asked, "Remy, after everything you've been through, the prison time, the fame, the marriage, your son's case, do you ever feel like giving up?" Remy paused, looked straight into the camera. "I've been counted out so many times. I stopped counting, but if I gave up, what lesson would that teach my son? That when life gets hard, you fold. No, that's not what I'm made of. I came from nothing, and I'll fight till my last breath for him." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't polished. It was real. That clip went viral within hours. Millions of views, thousands of comments. People weren't laughing anymore. They were listening. Meanwhile, the investigation took an unexpected turn. The man in the hoodie was identified, not by police, but by an anonymous online user who recognized the tattoo. The name was released privately to the court, and while details remain confidential, it was enough to trigger a full re-examination of the case. For the first time since 2021, Jayson's legal team was able to argue for reduced bail, and it was granted. When Remy saw her son walk out, even temporarily, she broke down. Not as a rapper, not as a celebrity, but as a mother who had fought the impossible and finally seen light at the end of the tunnel. The day Jayson walked free on bail, Remy posted a single message on social media: "You can't cancel a soul that was built from survival." It broke the internet, because this wasn't just about her family anymore, it was about everyone who's ever been misjudged, mislabeled, or misunderstood. Months passed. Remy slowly returned to music, not to chase fame, but to tell stories. Her new verse on a collaboration titled Head Tap wasn't a diss track, it was a message. A message to every system, every critic, every person who ever doubted her. "They thought I'd break, I built a throne instead." The crowd roared, but behind her fierce tone, there was peace. Because now, she wasn't fighting for relevance, she was fighting for meaning. Papoose, now officially separated and public with Claressa Shields, remained silent. He didn't insult her, didn't respond to questions. And maybe, in a way, that silence was respect, because whatever happened between them, love, loss, or betrayal, it didn't erase what they once built. And Remy, for her part, moved on gracefully. By early 2025, the prosecution's case was falling apart. Too many inconsistencies, too much missing evidence, and now, a new witness had come forward, anonymously, claiming Jayson wasn't the shooter at all. The final verdict is still pending, but one thing is clear. The public no longer sees Remy Ma as a criminal's mother. They see her as a survivor, a woman who turned pain into purpose. She ended her latest concert with one final message to the crowd: "They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed." The audience stood in silence for a moment, then erupted in applause, because everyone watching knew this wasn't just about hip-hop anymore. It was about redemption now, as the case moves toward its conclusion. One truth remains undeniable. Remy Ma's story has become bigger than her music, her fame, or even her pain. It's the story of a mother who never gave up, of a woman who walked through fire and came out carrying her child. And no matter what happens next in court, she's already won something the world once tried to take from her: respect. Because in the end, Remy Ma didn't just survive the system, she changed how people see strength. So now the question is, what happens next? Will the court finally clear Jayson's name? Or will another twist rewrite this story once again? Remy Ma's fight isn't just a headline anymore, it's a lesson in loyalty, love, and unshakable strength. If you've been following her journey, you already know. This isn't the end, this is the rebirth of Remy Ma. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think justice will finally be served? Or is the system still stacked against people like her? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every single one. And if you felt this story, hit subscribe and stay tuned, because what's coming next in Remy Ma's world might just change everything we thought we knew. This story isn't over, it's just getting started.